so many people when I say that my first job was, literally in a hard hat and a boiler suit at a gas plant, often ask, were you the only female? And whilst females were at the time kind of few and far between when I joined, you're every year, seeing the equality and 50-50 split get closer together.
Hello and welcome back to Future You, the podcast brought to you by graduate careers experts Prospects. I'm your host, Emily Slade, and in this episode, we look at the job role Commercial Advisor.
Hi, I'm Alex. I work as a commercial advisor for Shell within the integrated energy solutions space. But I am an engineer by background. I studied chemical engineering and then found myself working in the renewable space now for the last 2 years.
Excellent. And so what is it that you specifically do? What is your job?
So I'm responsible for the commercial negotiations between Shell and our customers who are interested in adding on-site energy solutions, which is typically solar or battery, to their sites. So a lot of companies have decarbonisation plans whereby they aspire to meet certain targets by 2030 or 2050. And often one of the ways in which they will meet that target is by installing solar or battery storage onto their site. So I'm responsible for letting them know what the offering that we can provide is, and then working up that contract and negotiating the terms of that contract for their eventual power offtake from that asset.
Perfect. Thank you. So you mentioned that you trained originally as an engineer. So did you went to university to do that?
I did, yes. I went to Strathclyde University and studied a master's in chemical engineering.
Excellent. And I suppose that the next question is your degree relevant to what you're doing now? And I assume that it is.
Yes and no. I wouldn't say that I use the core parts of my degree at all in my day-to-day job, but certainly those kind of base concepts and learnings are certainly helpful in what I do now. But the most aligned kind of industrial job with my degree is a role called process engineer. I did that when I was an intern quite a long time ago now, but I've never done it as a in the corporate world as a job. So although the concepts are there, I wouldn't say it's kind of necessity to do the role that I do.
Okay. And was there a reason that you chose that specific course? I imagine were there quite a few to choose from in the engineering route?
Yeah, so at the time I loved chemistry and physics at school, and I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, and I knew that chemical engineering gave me lots of different options at the end of my time at university. So I could have gone into the fast-moving consumer goods world like the Procter and Gamble and your kind of beauty products, etc. I also could have gone into the drinks industry. So there were many options. But yeah, I found myself in the energy industry.
Nice. And was that something that you always wanted to do ever since you were young? Had you always been drawn to these sort of chemistry, physics, kind of maths roles?
Yeah, I was certainly always drawn to STEM subjects, but I did first think that I wanted to be a dentist. I went on work experience and then came home, and that idea was in a distant memory after spending a week on work experience.
That's good. That's I think that's what work experience is for. So that's very useful.
Absolutely, yes. And my friends now who are dentists, they love it, but I have to say I am glad I didn't go the dentistry route.
Perfect. Less stickers involved in the energy sector, which is a shame.
Very true.
So how did you get into the energy sector?
Yeah, so probably my first introduction to the kind of energy world was in 2014. I was fortunate to go on an internship program to Dubai through Heriot-Watt University at the time. They have a campus out there. And that was my first introduction to the world of oil and gas, to the energy industry. And I worked as an assistant to the university department there, organising various different companies to come in and pitch to the master's students. So that gave me a grounding in what different companies in the energy industry were doing. And it also gave me a taste for living and working abroad. Then fast forward a couple of years, I secured a place on the Shell Assessed Internship Programme, and I spent 12 weeks living in Aberdeen, working as a process engineering intern. And that was a real proper job then within the energy industry, opening my eyes to not only oil and gas, but also energy as a whole. And I thoroughly enjoyed that summer. I was very fortunate to pass the internship and then be eligible to join a grad programme with Shell. And the role that was then possible for me to join Shell was on the operations engineering scheme. So I then joined in 2017 as an operations engineer and spent my first 2 years of my career really working as an operations supervisor at one of our UK onshore gas terminals. So straight from designing valves on paper to seeing those valves in practice in real life, which looking back now was a really fantastic kind of first job out of university.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you love most about your job?
I think one of the things I love most is the diversity. So even though I've been within the same company for 7 years, I've done very different things during that time, from working, I guess as many would say, at the coal face of doing the real operational oil and gas role. I've also worked in pipeline infrastructure, making sure that the UK is able to meet their energy demands for gas usage. And now I'm working in renewables, which is completely different again. And it's really fantastic within one company and I guess one skill set to be able to do so many different things. So probably the diversity of the role in the industry is one of my favourite things. And then the second thing is that I'm a real people person. I love physical interaction and chatting with people and communicating. So being able to communicate with lots of different people across a project is something that I really enjoy.
It's interesting. When I think of the energy world, as it were, I really only have this tunnel vision of renewable energy. And I assume sort of everyone in that industry works on solar panels and wind turbines and that sort of thing. But that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think renewable energy, of course, is rising in popularity and we absolutely need it to be a bigger part of our energy mix going forward. But if I even rewind 7 years to when I joined Shell, I didn't really consider the carbon policy of a company, or those types of things weren't important at the time during my choice of company. Whereas when you look at graduates now in terms of what they rank or prioritise before joining company, they're really interested in, carbon policies and net zero ambitions. So even in 7 years, I think we've seen quite a change in it. But certainly the energy industry I joined was very much old school oil and gas.
That feels like a really quick turnaround, just 7 years. And when you consider a pandemic in the middle of that, that seems very quick to suddenly have this wonderful, interest in renewable energy and actively making a difference in the world, in the industries.
Certainly, and I think people are a lot more clued up about it now than what they perhaps were before, and that's because they intentionally go and learn and read up about these things more so than we perhaps did 6 or 7 years ago. And certainly the younger generation are far more interested in it than what maybe we initially were around a decade ago. But it's good to see such change so quickly, because that's the kind of pace that we need if we're really going to get some traction within the energy industry.
Absolutely. So you've mentioned how sort of diverse your role and company are. You've had the opportunity to do lots of different things. So my next question is, how do you continue learning and growing as a professional?
I think there's a couple of parts to this. Within my day job, I try to always find other projects out with my kind of core role that I can get involved with. So for example, Shell have a group called Future Energy Leaders, which is a grassroots employee-led network trying to educate and encourage people to really get involved and take things at the table with regards to the energy transition. So that has really helped me improve my energy transition and decarbonisation knowledge. But I also get involved in external networking events or seminars, panels that are happening. And I'm also a member of a network in London here called the Career Edit, which is a network basically that gets rid of the kind of formal, stuffy networking that we all have grown to hate over the years, and is a very kind of cool, forward-thinking group of people that come together from all different aspects, creative industries, lawyers, accountants, you name it. There's that career in the room, and I feel going to events like that brings real diversity of thought, often things that I wouldn't have thought about or a different point of view. Really good also for the kind of soft skills side of developing your career and thinking about how to maybe take that leap of faith to going for the next promotion, or get kind of the confidence to pitch yourself for a pay rise, those types of things. I find those external forums are a great place to develop with that.
Yeah, definitely. So you are a woman in STEM. Has that impacted your career in any noticeable way at all?
Yeah, I can say it's probably, impacted me positively for the most part. So many people, when I say that my first job was, literally in a hard hat and a boiler suit at a gas plant, often ask, were you the only female? And whilst females were at the time kind of few and far between when I joined, you're every year, seeing the equality and 50-50 split get closer together. But I had a lot of opportunity when I was at university through, women-only science and engineering programs. I was very lucky to work and be the Shell rep on the board for the Young Professionals Women in Science and Engineering Board. And those opportunities were afforded to me through organisations who really tried to champion women in STEM. So I can honestly say that it's positively impacted my career. And that internship that I spoke about in Dubai was also through a project called Athena Swan, which is all about gender diversity and equality within the science and engineering space.
Oh, fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you. So throughout your career, what would you say the best piece of advice you've ever received is?
I think probably one of the best pieces of advice is about somebody once said to me, and actually it was very recently, talking and being curious are the two best things you can do for your career. If you think about how you met your work best friend, what did you do? You went up and you spoke to them. If you think about how you built a relationship with somebody who you landed a great customer deal with, how did that start? You called them and you spoke to them. So continuing to be curious and not being afraid to, walk up and introduce yourself and just start the conversation. It's amazing how many people now will not pick up the phone. They would rather just send an email and they wouldn't go at a networking event and physically speak to somebody. But that power of kind of conversation and human connection can still, it still trumps over any sort of email or any other sort of social networking. So that's probably the best piece.
Amazing. How do you organise and manage your time?
I wouldn't say I've got it nailed. I'm still trying to strike a balance, especially because when I'm not at Shell, I also run a business outside of Shell in the home interiors world, and that also takes a large portion of my spare time. And to be able to balance both of those and try and have some sort of social life, I have to be pretty on it. So I typically will review kind of emails and things for my own business in the morning, kind of between the hours of 6 till 8 when I'm doing things like going to the gym and doing things for myself. And then I will tend to block my time during the day. So if I know I've got activities that need to be done, I will physically put that into my calendar, whether it's writing a plan for XYZ or writing a certain document, I will physically block that time into my diary to make sure that I get the time to be able to do it. Because often I find otherwise people see, oh, your calendar's free, well, we just have a connect, and actually you need that as working time. So I find that blocking out working time really helps. And I also find that blocking in the breaks helps too, because so often we can get stuck in a rut and be sat at our desks for far too long, and then you realise it's like 6 hours since you went outside and got some fresh air. So I'm also trying to be a bit more conscious with taking proactive breaks. But yeah, I'm definitely still trying to strike the right balance. I don't quite have it 100% nailed yet.
Mm-hmm. I love calendar blocking. Ever since I discovered it, it's changed my life. I'm such a fan of calendar blocking. You can color code it. It's wonderful. Big fan of that.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. Blocking in breaks is so important. I find myself setting timers to be like, go and get some fresh air. Otherwise, yeah, you can get completely sidetracked and hyper-focused. Are you happy to briefly tell us about your side business?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in 2019, I bought my first house. And unfortunately, just before I bought that house, I sadly lost my dad. And growing up, my dad would have never paid somebody for something he could do himself. So I found myself with, new white walls, and like many people, I'd poured all of my pennies into the bricks and mortar, and I didn't have the money to then pay workmen to come and do the jobs for me. So I took to YouTube, and with my dad's tools in hand, I just decided to have a go. And I can't believe now the community that it's grown to, because I never for a minute, that wasn't why I started it. I just started it as a personal diary of doing up the house. And over around 18 months, the account grew to roughly 10,000. And I was delighted, because at the time, that was when you didn't get any sort of swipe up function until you had 10,000 followers on Instagram. So that used to be like the big milestone to meet. And then it was when Reels were just kind of becoming a thing, and short form video was really starting to take off. And I then had 2 videos or 3 videos in very quick succession, which really took off. And I went from 10K to almost 200K in the space of 6 weeks. And then you find yourself with a business literally overnight, because you start to receive lots of inquiries. And I was, I will be the first to say I was totally out of my depth. It was a whole new world. I never once thought I would make money from this business. Companies are pitching fees to you, and you have no idea whether what you're charging is correct. So I then at that point took the decision to join an agency who I'm still with now, that I absolutely love, Fark Media. and they now deal with all of my brand partnerships on my behalf. And I've now probably run it as a proper business for around 2.5 years.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Oh, what a lovely story. That's really nice.
Yeah, it's nice that something so positive has come out of such a dark
Something
time.
so tragic. Yeah, of course.
And now I get to do quite cool things. Like last week I got to go to Paris for the day just because I was going to a press show for an interiors company. So it also brings with it a whole world of opportunities that I didn't know existed beforehand.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. That's brilliant. I'm definitely going to go and check that out. Thank you. Back to your career. Are there any expectations that you had about your career that turned out to be different in reality?
So this is actually one that's probably changed the most recently, because I can honestly say I came into joining Shell and joining the energy industry and always thought, that's me, I've got my job, I'm going to work for 35 years now in this industry and then I'll retire just like everybody else does. And it's only in the last kind of 2 or 3 years, and I guess also as I've diversified my own income streams, what comes with that is choices and deciding what the future might look like. And whilst I still firmly believe I will work in the energy industry in some form, I definitely don't think I will necessarily retire from the energy industry still working in it 5 days a week. So that's probably one of the biggest things. I think I was definitely thought I'd be, with one company for my entire career and I would just do that traditional climbing the corporate ladder. But I also think once you're on that hamster wheel, you very quickly realize it isn't just a ladder, and there's a fantastic concept called the squiggly career, and how you how you go in many different twists and turns and you eventually end up, I guess, where you're supposed to be. So that's probably one of the biggest changes. And also I joined in a very operational, technical heavy role, and in the last 2 years I've moved to the commercial world to see what that had to offer, and now I love being able to blend this technical commercial skill set that I have and not being super technical. I think when you're at university doing an engineering degree, it's very easy to think, gosh, for the rest of my days I'm just going to be doing loads of calculations about something. And then you get into the real world and you realize you don't actually use any of those calculations. It gives you a basis for understanding a lot of stuff. So yeah, I really enjoy being able to blend my technical and commercial knowledge now, and that is quite unusual to have both in skill sets in the technical space. So yeah, I'm enjoying figuring that out at the moment.
Yeah, I love that. I love this sort of new squiggly careers, this idea of multi-hyphenated careers, all of that. It's wonderful. So to sort of talk about your skill set, what technical skills do you rely on for your job?
So quite a lot of our customers have tricky processes. So they might be like a brewery, they could be a manufacturing plant, they could be a packaging plant, they could be a steel plant, a glass maker. So what my core degree does give me is the opportunity to be able to understand how those processes work, because at the end of the day, most processes involve a volume of some sort of material and a pressure and a temperature or a speed of the line. And my chemical engineering degree is essentially process engineering. So one of the core kind of things in terms of understanding the customer's business is being able to really understand their core process and how they use energy. So how is the energy used coming into their system, and what outputs do they have from their system, either by waste or by useful product, that we can then see what parts of that we can tap into. So that's probably, understanding their core process is the main thing.
And what about soft skills? You've already mentioned communication is a big one, but what other soft skills have you relied on?
Being able to work as a team player is really, really important, particularly on any project. There are so many different pieces to bring a full project together, whether that's contracting and procurement to help you procure your contractors and the materials that you need, finance who help you with working all of the figures, people from the core business who manage these customers. Really being able to work cross-functionally across a team is so important. And if you're somebody who only can work, in silos or isn't able to kind of cross-functionally work, then I think that would really hinder you in this space. And also being able to communicate clearly. It's very easy when you fully understand a subject to quite often communicate it in words that might make sense to you but don't make sense to the general public or people who aren't as familiar with it. So I think being able to be a very clear communicator and communicate your message well is also a really important skill in this space.
Amazing. So What advice do you have for anyone looking to enter the industry?
I would say don't let any of your perhaps like pre-misconceptions of the industry put you off. There are so many talented young people who have a fantastic career in this industry. And just last week, I was saying that I think one of my best friends is expecting a baby at the moment. We were saying, well, I wonder what she'll do as a job. And I said, probably a job that doesn't exist yet, because with the rate of change of technology and how fast things are moving, you might find that, a job somebody will graduate and do in 20 years probably doesn't exist right now. So there's a really fantastic career to be had in the energy industry. The opportunity at the moment is vast. I'm going to have gone from joining an industry where I worked at a gas terminal, and I can't wait to see what the industry I retire from looks like. It really is. The rate of change that we're seeing is unprecedented, and a lot of it is a first for many companies. So it's like a cutting edge time to join the industry and really make a change and make an impact on what the energy mix of the future is and how it's used.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today. If people want to find your YouTube channel, where can they go?
Yeah, you can reach me at Alexandra Lawson is my handle across socials, and also happy to connect on LinkedIn if anybody wants to chat further.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're enjoying Future You or you got something out of the episode, we'd love it if you could drop us a review on Apple or Spotify. And whilst you're there, give us a follow. For even more information or to find jobs in the energy industry, you can head to prospects.ac.uk or find us on Instagram and TikTok. All the links are in the description. Once again, thanks for listening and good luck on your journey to Future You.